Today on the CTV News at 5, Lethbridge's mayor announces plans for his political future. Plus, surprising election results in BC. And what it's like to judge one of the biggest school science fairs in the country.
CTV News with Jackie Scantlebury.
Good afternoon. It's official. Lethbridge will have a new mayor in October.
Talking to my supporters, including my campaign manager, Ron Sakamoto, all of my friends, some of my colleagues on council, my family, and after 9 years, I decided that I was not going to seek re-election.
Mayor Rayko Dodic made that announcement this morning at City Hall. He says he's agonizing over the decision not to run again for some time, but in the end, his heart just wasn't in it. Dodic will be 61 soon and is expecting a grandchild around the campaign time, so family did play a large role in the decision. Still, he says it was a hard one to make.
It's hard to let go, and I got to say that I did have tears in my eyes when I was talking to some of my supporters and my wife. And so I want to thank everyone, the citizens of Lethbridge, for electing me 3 times. But after 9 years, I decided it was my time to go.
And a surprising election result in BC last night. The Liberals have won another majority, but Premier Christy Clark lost her own seat.
British Columbia has never been stronger, and our future has never been brighter.
Early polls had suggested it would be a smooth victory for the New Democrats, led by Adrian Dix, but the Liberals made history with a 4th straight majority government. Clark lost her own riding by just over 400 votes. Another Liberal MLA will likely have to step aside to let Clark run in a by-election. So now here's a look at the results of the 2 ridings in southeastern BC. The NDP's Norm Macdonald held on to his seat, winning 48% of the popular vote. He's been the MLA there since 2005. Meanwhile, Kootenay Bill, the Liberal Party's Bill Bennett, was also re-elected in the East Kootenay riding. He captured 63% of the vote. Bennett has held the seat since 2001. Coming up on our news at 6, we'll tell you why pollsters were left scratching their heads with the election results, similar to what happened here in Alberta's last election. Disabled Albertans and their supporters rallied today in Edmonton to try and convince the government to reverse its decision to make millions in funding cuts. Shame on you! Shame on you! Southern Albertans were part of the rally at the Alberta legislature today. Funding cuts are estimated to be as high as $60 million, which critics say is the largest cut to disability support services in Alberta's history. Today's rally was called Now You Can See Me.
Because they are so blinded by the sound of everything else, and even though they even have the money coming out of the yin-yang, they have no right to cut it out of their programs.
With the long weekend coming up, Dory, everyone wants to know what's in the forecast. The good news is, specifically Saturday, things are improving.
Well, specifically Saturday, things are improving temperature-wise, but Saturday is still the target day for the most amount of precipitation. So pretty much Friday to Monday, you're looking at a chance of precipitation all the way through, but temperatures are not too bad, and you'll see that reflected in the 5-day forecast. The cup is half full, not half empty. At least that's my theory.
Dory.
I'll tell you more about it.
More with Dory coming up. Now, despite the precipitation Dory was just mentioning, we have had a lot of warmer, drier weather, and that means the list of fire bans across the province continues to grow. Here's a look at the latest list for southern Alberta. It includes the County of Newell, County of Warner, Cypress County, Lethbridge's River Valley, MD of Willow Creek, and Vulcan County. Some areas are allowing fires in camp stoves. You can check the Alberta Fire Ban .ca website for more information. County of Lethbridge and MD of Pincher Creek are both under fire prevention notices at this time, and that means you're being asked to use extreme caution when starting fires in those areas. A warning tonight from police about coyotes in the Lethbridge area. Police say a woman and her dog were attacked by a coyote along Bridge Drive West while out for a jog just this afternoon. It happened on the walkway along Bridge Drive West when a coyote snuck up from behind and then attacked the woman's black lab. The woman was able to scare the animal away. The dog did suffer some minor injuries to its tail. If you do encounter a coyote, make sure that you appear large, throw rocks or sticks at it, and shout out loud. Never turn or run. Instead, back away very slowly. Canada Border Services is gearing up for another busy summer. With the arrival of spring, more people are traveling and cross-border traffic will be dramatically increasing over the next few months. And today, the Chief Mountain Port of Entry opened for the season. As Terry Boat discovered, it will quickly become one of southern Alberta's busiest border crossings.
The Chief Mountain border crossing has just reopened, and within minutes, the first visitors arrive.
Were there any vehicle repairs, alterations, or...
A couple from the Netherlands on a scenic journey that started a few weeks ago in Ontario.
Yes, we have about 150 people following us on the internet.
Started in Toronto, went down to the US, and now going back to Canada to see some beautiful parks, I hope.
Border Services officers say tourists, or park hoppers, account for the vast majority of travelers that use this remote crossing. It's one that provides the shortest route between two national parks, Waterton in Canada and Glacier in the US.
And so we get a lot of people that come through and they want to see the different areas and come through the mountains, and that's what this port attracts, is those types of travelers.
For the CBSA officers stationed here, this is more than just a workplace. It's also their home for the summer.
They like it. You know, it's kind of it's a relief, right? You're coming up to an area that you walk out and you see the mountains and the trees. You know, you got the wildlife there on your back doorstep, and so they love it.
Mackenzie Meehan likes the scenery, but says it's also a nice change from crossings that see a high volume of commercial or business traffic.
This is purely for pleasure, though, so people are generally very happy and very quick to comply with whatever we ask. They're very helpful.
It's quiet right now, but it's going to get busier. Over the next 4.5 months, 65,000 travelers will pass through the Chief Mountain border crossing. Canada Border Services says ports like this may be smaller and more remote, but that doesn't change the job. At times, it just makes it more enjoyable. Terry Boat, CTV News, at the Chief Mountain border crossing.
Canada Border Service Agency says there are some simple things you can do to speed up your traveling through the border. Make sure you have your ID and other documents ready to go. Declare all of your purchases. Be prepared to show receipts. Officials say it's important to keep in mind that even if you exceed your personal exemption limit and have to pay GST, it's still a small amount compared to paying the penalties or having the items taken away. An Alberta man facing charges in connection with the largest weapon bust at the Carway border crossing could have his sentence appealed before it's even given to him. Kevin Swanson hasn't actually been sentenced yet, but sentencing guidelines suggest he could spend a minimum of 3 years in prison. The Court of Appeals, however, says that's unconstitutional because sentencing should be based on the circumstances surrounding his arrest. Swanson's lawyer appeared in court yesterday, but the matter was adjourned to June the 10th to schedule a date for a constitutional argument. In 2011, Swanson tried to cross the border into Alberta with 16 weapons, magazine clips, and a silencer. He faces charges of illegal importation and unauthorized possession of weapons. We're going to find out tomorrow exactly how the University of Lethbridge will handle a $12 million funding shortfall. The Alberta government announced a 7.3% cutback for all post-secondary schools in its budget. The president of the university has already indicated the school plans to run an operating deficit, as well as cutting back on infrastructure maintenance and research funding. The budget will be presented to the Board of Governors tomorrow. Well, for the past 2 days, the University of Lethbridge Gymnasium has been packed with students from across the country anxious about being judged in the Canada-wide science fair. But if the anxiety for students has been high, imagine what it's like for those judging it. Jeanette Rocher reports.
Pressure vessels, you always worry about those from a safety perspective, right?
Mark Roussel and Judith Soon have spent the past 3 days reading, pondering, and evaluating hundreds of science projects.
There's something of the order of $1 million in prizes that we had to decide effectively in one day.
340 experts were brought to Lethbridge. Their job, to judge the nearly 500 finalists from across Canada. These are the best and brightest young scientists in their province.
It's really challenging because really what we want to do is find out the best projects. And what we want them to do is feel fantastic about the judging experience.
Judge Soon explains that in order to appreciate and critically judge the work students have done, teams of 4 to 6 judges from specific fields of study are matched with projects that correlate to the judge's field of expertise.
We match up the judges in a team that might have a couple of PhDs, maybe a master's student. If it's health, it could have a physician and a nurse.
In some cases, this is the first chance students have to interact with an expert. In the end, students spend a total of about 4 hours with judges. And those judges' hypothesis?
I got many comments from the judges telling me that they thought that some of these kids, their projects could have been a master's thesis at the university level. You know, they're ready and they're able to take over from older scientists like me.
Students have today off to explore southern Alberta. Meanwhile, the judges have spent most of today poring over the hundreds of projects on display here to find the best of the best, which will be announced tomorrow afternoon. Jeanette Roche, CTV News, Lethbridge.
Now, those winners will be announced 3 p.m. Thursday at the NMAX Center, but the projects are going to stay on display through to Friday. Straight ahead, Dory's got more about the long weekend forecast coming up. Checking in on the day's financials, Dow and S&P continue their record runs.